What is up, fellas? In today's video we're going to be installing a 12.1 inch screen in my F-150. Now Phoenix Android Radios sponsored this video and sent the unit out for us to try out and make a video on. I was really excited to see this radio. I was actually doing the thing that all guys do and on eBay after I got my truck and on Google and stuff, looking at different things for my truck, you know, window shopping, and I ran upon this Phoenix Android Radio company. Now I've always been real scared of Android radios because I have gotten some cheap ones off Amazon, and of course they don't work great, but this seems to be a real high quality unit and it uses a lot of your factory integrated stuff in the truck. So from the videos I've seen, they look like a really good unit. So we contacted them, they sent us out a radio, and we're going to try it out and we're going to give you an unbiased opinion. It's a pretty simple process installing this thing. It's a lot of plug and play. You don't have to strip any wires or anything like that, so it should be a pretty quick install. We're going to jump in the truck and remove all that factory radio stuff and get this Phoenix Android radio installed. So here we go. So on a 13 F-150, the only thing you have to do to get the radio out is you need to pop these two panels off, and there's a 7mm screw at the top corner on each side, and there's also one right under the radio on each corner as well. This panel you can't pop all the way out unless you get the bezel, the gauge bezel trim out, and I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to pop it loose, and you have enough room to reach in there with an extension to get that 7mm out. So I got this panel removing tool kit that comes with a bunch of just different pry tools that's made of a plastic that's not going to scratch up your interior. I used to do a lot of car audio garbage. So first off, we got the two 7mm that's down in these corners. They're kind of hard to see, but they're right under this lip. There's two 7mm, so we'll pull those out. There's another one. So I'm going to make sure all my stuff's out of my cubby, and then if you grab the bottom of this trim, you can see it kind of pops out, and then you can use a panel tool to get in here. Just be easy and break it. There we go. You can see if I was to want to take this completely out, I'd have to take all this stuff off, and that's not necessary. Just doing more work than you have to. I know a lot of people think this is nerve-wracking, but I've done this 1,000 times in cars, Mercedes, all kinds of vehicles. It's a little scary.
It was like your first side job, wasn't it?
Yeah. I was running people's cars. Okay, that's all we need to take that out. We have a 7mm right up top here. I'm using an extension just to make it easier to get back there. We can pry this one back. Try not to drop your screws down into your dash. That's basically all the screws we have to take out. Now you can grab the bottom of your radio, try to get it in a spot you can grab it, which there's not many. Keep on judging me with your judging eyes, Braxton. You can take a Sawzall and just cut, but it brings down the resale of the value of the truck's value. Son of a cankle bandit. There we go. Got it. My truck radio just came on.
Did that make you worry?
No. So now that we got it unclicked out, you want to push this aside for a second, and you can just get that radio out without having to do anything else. It's extremely weird how my truck radio's on right now, but you know, we'll worry about that later. So you're going to have a bunch of connections from your traction control and your AC stuff. You just unplug everything. We can remove this front part. There's not a ton of room back there, so you about have to just feel and pray. Please let me get this radio out without losing my temper. And punching Braxton right square in the mouth. Help Braxton to live long enough to wreck his go-kart.
Wow, laugh it up. Laugh at sin.
That's one way.
Got it. But you know what? Who cares? And that's it. That's how you remove the AC portion and most of the radio out of a 13 F-150. There you go, Braxton. It's your birthday present. Put that on your go-kart.
Alright, I'm gonna give it to Dad.
Cool.
On his truck.
So, next we have a bunch of 7mm that hold in basically this CD unit. This is like the basically CD deck and amplifier, and then this is just your small screen portion. So we're gonna grab our impact and take these 7s out. And that's where your main wiring harnesses are going to be, is behind the CD deck. Alrighty. So now the screen can come out. It's just got a little push clip. That's your little screen, Braxton. This can be for your next mini buck.
GPS navigator.
Woo! Alright, so now we can just pull out on this CD deck and it won't go nowheres. Lean it down and there's looks like about 4 connectors. Unplug all of these. We got various antennas and whatnot, and there's the CD deck. Braxton, you can put this on your off-road buggy.
Thank you.
So the new radio does not come with a traction control button. You're going to use your original Ford traction control button. So we just need to pop this out of this housing, and that's the only thing we're going to need out of this. Should just have some little retaining clips that I may or may not break on removal. So the traction control button has 2 push clips on each side. They're probably a pain to push. No, they're not. So there's that traction control button. That's all we needed right there. And now we need to go through, the radio doesn't come with any instructions. So in a 13 F-150, I'm gonna have to play around with all, you know, they're labeled a little bit, but not enough so you know which ones to put aside and which ones to use. So that's what I'm gonna do for the next few minutes, is hook everything up, turn my switch on, make sure we have the right, because our backup camera on this truck, it didn't come with a factory integrated one. So we're using a rear view mirror style. We are going to be removing this and putting on the factory mirror, and going to run a rear view camera through the radio. So this radio didn't come with a ton of instructions, so we end up calling the company, and they have real good customer service. The guy walked me right through it. They have this pink wire that we couldn't find out where it plugged up to, and not having any instructions, you know, we did not know. So we found out we got to remove the gauge cluster, and this will plug up in between a harness and basically give our unit power with this green wire. So once we get this hooked up, we should be good to go ahead and test fire it and look at how it's going to work. And we also need to run the GPS antenna. I'm going to run it under the dash. As long as plastic is above it and no metal, it should get a good signal. You don't have to run it on top of your dash or, you know, outside the vehicle. So when we have this gauge cluster pulled out, if we see a good spot to stick it so it'll get a good signal, we'll do that as well. And then we need to remove the factory USB panel to plug in this little harness right here that'll allow us to still use our original USB in the truck. So we got a couple 7mm bolts right here in the top of this gauge cluster that'll pull the trim out, and then we have 4 more 7mm behind it. So let's get to taking this out real quick. So now we got that out, we can just basically snap this out. It's very scary. Braxton's locking doors over here like he owns the place. And this can be a little Fandingo to pop out of here. Most time they are. You kind of lean it forward, break any plastic that's in your way with a hammer or small chisel.
Aren't you funny?
So there's 2 7mm, 1 on each corner, and 2 right up above the gauge cluster. Got to remove those. This is a long distance bolt. Now this gauge cluster should kind of shimmy its way out of here. Oh yeah. Now we can do some tampering with the mileage, make the value of my truck go up. So there's a harness right here. So basically they give you this bypass for this little pigtail. We're going to plug it in there, and now we need to run this wire above over here and just keep feeding it until it pokes out somewheres that you're happy with. Hold that gauge close to baby daddy. So we got that wire right there, and that's going to plug in to our radio harness. Now is a good time to find a spot to put this GPS antenna. As I stated before, as long as plastic is above it, you're perfectly fine to put it inside the vehicle and hidden out of sight. So I can see exactly where I can put it. There's a little cowl right there that the gauges bolt to. I'm just going to stick that bad boy right onto that. So that should work great. Oh great, we got GPS now. Government will be tracking me. Is it illegal to put up a kid that you don't own for adoption? So we're just going to feed this wire through there, and then any excess we can bundle right up. Make sure that baby daddy's stuck down good. It seems like it's got a pretty good hold. And then I can just zip tie the excess 73 feet up in the back. So now we can plug that. Ugh. Sound a little crusty. So now we can plug that other side of that pigtail that we added into our gauges. So the way I'm going to do that is kind of stick it in there, right there in the top of the gauges. Look at that. It's going crazy. My vehicle is now worthless. So we're going to do like that. Flip it around. What if we just left the gauges out of the truck?
Then the cops, when they pull you over, they're like, you know, you were going 175, and you're like, well, my gauge is broken, just somehow magically disappeared, so I didn't know how fast I was going.
What do you want me to do about that, officer? So the bottom bolts on the gauges are kind of finicky to get to, so I'm using a magnet to get it in there and get the first couple threads started. And I just pull the magnet off, put my extension in there, and finish screwing my gauges in. Pretty easy process. Only hold up was not knowing about that being back there, that harness that we had to tie into. They really want you to install products like this professionally, get them professionally installed, so if the unit messes up, it's not, you know, your fault. Would you call me professional?
I think you've done it enough to be professional.
Hey! But she don't know what she's talking about. Actually, I'm gonna leave that off because now look, that frees that up to get out of my life. So I'm gonna unplug the four-wheel drive. We don't need four-wheel drive in the truck. So that was kind of easier than prying that aside. I would rather just take those two 7mm out, but you know, to each his own. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. So I got to know also, you have to pull these clips off of the factory radio and pop them onto the new radio. They do not come with any in it, so you need to do that. Look at these huge zip ties he got me. One day.
That's what happens when you let a kid do a man's job.
Hey, that kid. Okay, so I think we have everything hooked up now. We had to run the USB. So F-150s have a factory aux plug-in and USB down below the radio. And this radio retains that factory USB, so it'll work with this new radio. So what you have to do is, you got this little plate up here in the top of the dash. You pop the little rubber, little anti-slip pad out of it, and there's two 7mm bolts in it. Once you get them out, you lift it up and pull it towards the window, and it'll slide right out. And there, I don't think you're going to be able to see it, but there's a sync module right here with a little plug in the back of it that looks like this right here. Look down here. That looks like this. It's basically a micro USB. So if you unplug it, this radio has a USB 1 cable that plugs right into that. So now we can retain our factory USB down under the radio. And we also have this other USB you can run and just stick in the glove box to hook up a hard drive with music or a thumb drive with some music. So later on I'll probably put another outlet for this, but for now we can just leave it in the glove box like so. So now we can slide this back in and put those 7mm bolts back in, and we can start zip tying stuff up. I think the only thing I need to do is figure out the sub wires, like the amp turn on and also the subwoofer audio signal. So it has front and rear audio outputs, but I really wanted it to be on an actual sub control. But I cannot find that. So all these excess wires, I'm going to zip tie them up all clean and nice, so we don't have a huge bundle of wires under here. And Braxton got me, you know, 1,000 pound strength zip ties. That boy, I tell you. And this is, I told him to get me some snips, and he got me 10 snips. So they'll work. Bless his little itty bitty tiny baby size heart. Alright, so you can see she's already installed. We've actually had this thing installed for a few weeks. I wanted to play with it and, you know, make sure I know the ins and outs. So we're going to time how long it takes to fully boot up. So are we ready? So that's from my truck starting. And we'll go over the pros and cons to it, but overall it's pretty sweet.
I got the huge screen. Huge screen.
I'm gonna guess it takes a full minute to fully boot up. Okay. Actually, that's faster than I thought. That's pretty quick, actually. I was thinking it was around a minute. The good thing about it, though, is while it's in that boot up phase, if I was to put it in reverse, the camera will still kick on. And I did take out the camera that I had up here, put my stock mirror back on, and I hooked up a backup camera to this. I do need to clean it because it's pretty dirty, but it's a pretty good view. And it has this turning feature like newer cars do. You can turn that on or off, which I'm actually going to because my camera has the dotted lines, and this really doesn't help me out at all. But this is what it looks like on the home screen. If you you have your Raptor, and I'm not sure if you can change that because I haven't tried. I kind of like it, and it tells the time and date and everything. We can hit radio up here, and then it'll give us actually our RPMs and our miles per hour, and this is really accurate. I thought this would be sluggish, but it's dead on what my RPMs is. If I rev up, you know, it's pretty quick to going with the gauge, so that's pretty impressive. I thought that'd be sluggish. And of course you got AM, FM, you got phone link, Bluetooth. I don't use Bluetooth because I don't know if it uses, I'm guessing it uses the microphone built into the radio here, and it's not the greatest quality. So I would rather just not use Bluetooth, to be honest. But the good thing about it is on navigation, you can use whatever app you want. And of course I use Google Maps. This is the only thing, it takes just a second for Google Maps to fully work. You know, Google Map is a pretty demanding app, so this is only a 1 gig of RAM model. They have a 2 gig of RAM model, and if you're going to buy this radio, I'd highly recommend getting the 2 gig model, and it's actually ready to go right now. We could type in an address, and it's just a little bit sluggish on Google Maps, but it works pretty good. We took this truck to Florida, and it worked great the whole way down. And then you can go to apps, and you can actually just go into the App Store and download whatever you want. We tried Temple Run just to see how a game worked on it, and it worked pretty well. No sluggish stuff. And I have the Torque app. That's an app where you can basically use a Bluetooth OBD dongle and have like real-time stats on your truck. I haven't played with that yet, but we've been using Google Music. I like it quite a bit. And the radio sounds awesome. You know, I was worried about it being an Android radio, about having you know, like a crusty equalizer in it, but it sounds really good. I did install my sub. We'll show that on a later video. And I wasn't able to use the sub out on the radio. It was a 1-wire sub out. I've never seen that before. So I ended up using the rear outs, and I put my bass knob for my amp. I like mounted it in the dash over here. I don't think you'll be able to see it, but next to my exhaust cutout switch, and it works great. But the one complaint I have about this whole radio is the AC and heat. So it's reverted to off every time you start your truck. So if it's cold outside, I was going to put a remote start on my truck so we could leave the heat on and start my truck up. But the only bad thing about that, you would still have to come out here and touch the AC and heat controls to make it turn on. It doesn't just automatically turn on. I'm hoping there's a setting that'll, you know, launch it back to what you had it, but you know, it's all touch screen. That's not too bad. I don't like how it reverts to feet every time. You have to hit it twice to go to the, you know, the dash vents. It's just little things like that that bug me about the radio. But other than that, the radio is awesome. One of my buddies has I think a 11 F-150, and I had put a Pioneer 6.8 inch screen or something, 6.5 inch screen in his dash. And I got in his truck the other day, and it looks so tiny compared to this big screen. I was thinking about trying an aftermarket radio, you know, just a Pioneer unit, but his was so small looking in his dash, and this thing looks so awesome. I think I'm going to deal with the heat controls, and that's one thing maybe Phoenix could work on, is a way for the heat and air to kick on automatically to where you had it before. And there may be. I need to call them. They have great customer service. They'll walk you through the whole thing. I'm showing on screen right now the cables I didn't use with this radio. So I wanted to quickly show the harnesses that I did not use on this kit. This is the DVR harness. I will put this aside just in case I ever want to use a DVR, or we ever sell the truck down the road and someone wants to add a DVR. So there's a DVR harness with all the wiring. They're all labeled and really easy to install. This is a Mustang harness that we did not use. It says Mustang high video conversion line, so we did not use that harness. Of course, you would use that if you had a Mustang, but it was not needed for the F-150. We also have an AUX line where you can hook up like a DVD player or something. Of course, we didn't use that. We don't have a DVD player or any kind of old game system in the truck, so that will be set aside as well. And then this is the another Mustang video converter line. So you're going to have two Mustang converter lines that you will not use on this radio. Everything else you can use. These was just optional things that I did not want to use, and I didn't want the extra wires in the dash, so I can throw these in the glove box for later use if we ever want to add these things. It's really nice. And then you have a hard button that kicks nav on. I like everything about it. It's pretty sweet. What are your thoughts on it, Miss Redbeard?
My only complaint is starting the truck and how long it takes to boot up to get to the heater.
The 35-second boot up time to not be able.
Especially in the mornings when I have to go to school.
Yeah, so we start my truck and warm it up before we take our kids to school. So we have to come out here, start the truck, and stand it, you know, and sometimes it's 25 degrees out here, and you have to sit there for that 35 seconds before you can turn the heat on. That is a little bit of a complaint. That's my biggest pet peeve about this radio. Everything else works great. I love the fact we don't have Wi-Fi on right now, but I can turn Wi-Fi on my phone. It connects automatically, like super fast. But you can watch YouTube videos, of course, use any app. I really like it. I think it's something to really check out if you have a 150, because there's nothing else you can put. Now a lot of people is doing iPads in the dash, and the only problem with that, this thing works with everything. Like if I open my door, you can see that it shows a door ajar, and it dims down the radio when you open your door as well. But it shows your door ajar on screen, what door's open. It shows you can do the tire, which I haven't actually set it up, but you can do the tire pressure monitoring system. It's pretty crazy. All right, so 35-second boot time is pretty impressive. I thought it was longer than that. It feels like longer when you're waiting in the coat, but that's really good. I was pretty impressed with that. So I'm gonna turn my hotspot on my phone. I just turned it on. You'll notice the little Wi-Fi symbol will turn white in just a second, and it works pretty fast. One more pet peeve I have, I should have timed how long it takes Wi-Fi. There it is. That's pretty quick, I mean, for the device to find it and connect to it. So now we can go to the Play Store, let's say, and we'll show you, and that's not slow. I've seen, you know, Android devices be slower, but it works pretty well. I mean, you can download any game that you could on the tablet, and it works awesome. One pet peeve I do have, another one. So the one thing we have a problem with is the AC and heat controls, not being able to use them until the radio boots up. I understand that it uses the OS Android to control that stuff, but again, it'd be nice if it allowed you, just like the backup camera. The backup camera works the whole entire time the boot up sequence is happening. Why can't the air, you know, why can't this little portion of the screen always be down there even when it's booting up? And another thing is the time. You'll notice now it says 12:55 instead of 1:55. No matter how I set that time, I can set it an hour fast or an hour slow, but it changes an hour back when I hook up the Wi-Fi. I've turned off, you know, to receive time from, you know, the internet, from network. That didn't fix it. I cannot fix that problem. So basically our time is only right when Wi-Fi is connected. That drives me crazy. Those two pet peeves, because I always look at my radio for the time. We used to have this backup camera and it told the time up here, and that was really handy because you didn't have to look at your phone or your watch. It's nice looking at the dash. That's a downer. I need to call them, and I'm sure it's a setting. I'm sure they'll be able to walk me through it, but I've went through all the settings. So if we go to settings here, you can see that this is where you choose what map service you want to use, and of course I use Google. GPS, that'll tell how strong your signals are, and date and time. So if we go in here, I have everything daylight standard time I want it on. I've turned it off to see if that changes anything, and it doesn't. And here's your equalizer. But the subwoofer, as I stated, this doesn't control my subwoofer. I have an actual bass knob for my amp, but equalizer works really well though. It's good. You can set how bright you want it at night, so when your headlights come on, I have it dimmed down all the way because it's still a huge screen and it's still bright, but you can't hit the moon up here and black out the screen. I really like that because when we're on the interstate and stuff, that's pretty handy. And there's little things like this. If we hit system, you have, like you can turn, okay, there's the parking guidelines. I can turn that off now because I actually wanted that off. You can have right, left, and front cameras, so you can do 360-degree cameras on this truck. That's pretty cool. And you can do heated seats and control them with the radio. So if your vehicle didn't come with factory heated seats, you can add heated seats and have the radio control that. I think that's pretty sweet, and I think that's something I want to do later because heated seats is really nice. We're going to check into that, talk with him, see if I can just use an aftermarket heated seat, but it seems like you can from the settings. It's just your normal. There's a ton of settings on this. You can set, if you had a factory camera before, it'll use the truck's wiring harness to receive the video signal, but I have an aftermarket, so that's why. Show temp, my truck did not have a temperature. It doesn't tell me the temperature. This model F-150 don't. So if we turn that on, it says like -50 degrees. So there's no reason to put that on. You can put a tuner on this and watch antenna TV on this radio as well, but who's going to use that, to be honest? Here's where you can set up your steering wheel controls. They work fine. System version, if you tap this a bunch of times, or no, if you hold down, that's what it is. That's what it is. Hold down, it'll come up with this, and I think it's 8861. No, 7897. Oh, so this gets into more settings. You can pick what vehicle you're using. I'm using old F-150 low. Those change how the steering wheel controls work, how the radio works, so you need to call them if you have a problem with that. And system, if we go to it, it's a lot of the same but different settings to just tune everything on it. And there's also another hidden menu. If you go to advanced, it's going to ask you for a password, and I think this one's 8861. Yeah, and it gets you into another set of settings, so you can just play with everything. Turn 360-degree cameras on or off. Reverse from OBD, so you don't have to run a reverse line to the radio to tell the radio when it's in reverse. It'll pull it from the OBD that we added. I'm guessing it's the harness that we added in between the gauge cluster, that pigtail, but pretty sweet. All in all, we have the home button there, and you can do split screen. Of course, you can have your AM FM radio, and I do like how it shows RPMs and stuff. We're going to play with this radio and make another video after we're going to call Phoenix Android Radios. A huge shout out to them for sponsoring this video and sending this radio out. I really like it. It's a lot better quality than I thought. It's always risky getting a company's Android units. You never know how they're going to work. You never know if the touch screen's going to be nice, if it's going to be laggy. This thing works great. I really like it. Other than those two little pet peeves, the time being an hour off but being right on Wi-Fi, that drives me crazy, and the air conditioning. We're going to see if there's a setting I can change with that, and if not, maybe that's a problem they haven't seen and they can fix that with their developers. That would be pretty sweet to get that fixed. But I think it looks awesome in the dash. It just that's the first thing someone notices when they get in the truck, and it looks factory. It doesn't look like some aftermarket unit. When you put an aftermarket Pioneer in there's a lot of open plastic, and this thing looks great. I really like it.
That really is the first thing people say when they get in here.
Yeah, it's a huge screen. That's sweet, and it is. It works great. Steering wheel controls, as I stated, work great. Everything works awesome with it, and it sounds good, and we're really happy with it. So guys, let me know what you think of the Phoenix Android radio in the comment section below. I really like it. I do have those few pet peeves, but I think it's something that Phoenix can work out for me. I haven't contacted them in a few weeks. We actually drove my truck down to Florida, and the GPS worked great. We did have, so we've owned this radio for about 2 or 3 months, We have had 1 or 2 problems out of it, but they're not a problem that continues to happen. One time the radio froze up. I've even had my factory Ford radio freeze up on me before, so that's not a big deal. I don't blame Phoenix for that. Electronics are going to have some quirks sometimes, and the screen blacked out and we had to shut the vehicle off, start it back, and it worked fine. It has done that twice in about 3 months, and it seems to not have done it in a very long time. So it was just a random little quirk that it had, so no problem there. We do like it quite a bit. We're going to give you an update after a few more months to show you how it's working, what we figure out on it. There are a lot of hidden settings on this radio and a lot of stuff that developers hidden in this this whole UI, the skin on top of Android. So it'd be cool to talk to Phoenix and see, you know, what we can tweak in there and really fine tune this radio and make it even better. So let me know what you think about this radio. Make sure to check out that link to their website. They have a ton of radios for newer vehicles, so make sure to check them out and maybe get one for yourself for Christmas. Christmas is coming up. Thank you guys for watching. We love you, and God bless. Redbeard's Garage is powered by GoPowersports.com. Go Power Sports has a huge amount of awesome go-kart and mini bike parts, and when making your purchase, use the Redbeard discount code in the upper right-hand corner of your shopping cart to grab yourself a sweet deal. Hit that subscribe button and make sure the notification bell is on so you'll never miss another episode, and go check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Pinterest to stay up to date with the channel. Guys, always come back to Redbeard's Garage. I'm out.